will stay in Kenya. It is now my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite my guest, President Stubb, President of the Republic of Finland, to deliver his remarks. Mr. President.
Mr. President, Your Excellency William, thank you very much for the warm welcome that I've received here personally together with Suzanne and then our delegation. When I was told that this is actually the first state visit of a President of Finland, I was quite surprised because I had always felt that our relations had been quite close, whether it was about missionaries or 4,000 Kenyans living in Finland and the cooperation that we've had in so many fields. So when you suggested to me when we first met in Switzerland about a year ago that why don't you come over, I immediately said I'd love to come over, and it's been a great pleasure to be here. We have a long history together, and I'm sure that we have a good future together as well. For Finland, Kenya is a very strong supporter of multilateralism and a promoter of regional peace and security, but also a country with a global voice. Whether it's Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine or whether it's issues in the Middle East, Kenya has always been one of those pillars of peace, and that's why I'm especially happy that we have signed the Memorandum of Understanding linked to peace mediation. Finland and Kenya, as I noted, have had long-term good relations, and we share, I think, building a multilateral world. Finland is a small country, we're 5.6 million. Compare that with Kenya, 56 million. I think we live in a world where the world order is changing. It'll take about 5 to 10 years for it to settle down, and there will be a set of key states which decide whether we tilt towards multilateral cooperation or perhaps a bit more multipolar transaction. And Kenya is certainly one of those countries. India, obviously, another one, or say Brazil in Latin America. So it's been a great privilege to listen to your analysis about the regional conflicts and how we can work common interests linked to peace and development together. In many ways, it's a paradox, I would argue, that in today's world where we need more cooperation than ever, we're actually seeing a diversification towards different types of transactional deals. We need to work together on the subjects that we discussed today: climate change, forestry, development, global health, technology, economy. And I'm sure that countries which might be far away but still in the same time zone will have many opportunities to cooperate together. And I don't say this just as a diplomatic nicety. Finland is seeking close partners, and Kenya will certainly be one of them. I'm also happy that we have a big business delegation here today, because I do think that driving business interests, cooperation, is a good way forward, whether it's in the green economy, digitalization and technology, infrastructure, healthcare, or agriculture and agribusiness. My final point is to say that William and I had the opportunity to first have bilateral discussions where we were able to deal with a broad range of issues, whether global, regional or bilateral. We also talked about the big shifts that we're seeing worldwide in democracy in today's world. We talked about NGOs and the importance of their role in society. We have to remember that democracy is something that you not only have to protect, but you have to work at all times. And I think William and I share that goal. And we feel very strongly that working towards more liberal democratic societies where the rule of law is the basis and foundation, where human rights are at the center of whatever we do, is the best way to push the dossier forward. And this is something that William and I not only discussed but share. So finally, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here and all the work that we have done together so far and all the work that we do in the future. The nice thing with modern diplomacy is that we shared numbers already a year ago, so we're in constant contact anyway. Thank you very much.
That's correct.
And that brings us to the end of the joint press briefing from the two heads of state.
Do they have any questions?
And they have given us time for questions, so if we have any questions, we'll take a few. Remember to mention your name, the media house you represent, and let's try and keep the questions as tight as possible. Over to the questions. Anybody with a question, kindly just raise up your hand. We'll have a microphone brought to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm Steve Otieno for the Daily Nation here in Kenya. On the partnership deal with education, some 2 years ago we had a few Kenyan students who had gone to universities in Finland, and there was a delay or a hitch in the payment of their school fees. They ended up really stranded far away in Finland. So will you expect to see a bit better handling of them next time when such a scenario happens? I understand also Finland, until recently you were non-allied to NATO, but you did so when Moscow went to Kyiv. And we saw the Finnish people a bit happy. And you are also trying to help us with regional stability. What are some of the key lessons you're going to learn from you, especially going by your good army, with the long border you share with Russia? Thank you.
Sure. I mean, two very good questions, rather diverse. On the first one, I don't know the specific case, but of course, anytime there are delays in students entering Finland, I find that to be quite unfortunate. Fortunately, we have a very good university system which attracts a lot of students, and I would hope, of course, that in the future we get more Kenyan students as well. But any kind of delays and hopefully students not getting stranded in my mind is unacceptable. On the second question, indeed, in today's world, we live in turbulent times, in a time when the world order is changing. And we felt in Finland, which has a 1,340 kilometer long border with Russia, that it's always good to have friends. Now, after the Cold War ended, we joined the European Union, which became our values base. But we did not join NATO at the time for a number of reasons. But I think the Finnish people felt that when Russia and Putin aggressively attacked Ukraine on the 24th of February 2022, we had to join an alliance. So NATO membership previously in opinion polls was 50 against 20 in favor. And in an opinion poll over 3 nights, the 23rd, 24th and 25th of February in 2022, it reversed. And now we're talking about support figures for NATO between 70 and 80%. So there was this feeling that we had experienced a similar attack from the Soviet Union in 1939, 1944. So there's a close emotional attachment to what Ukraine was undergoing. After World War II, we retained our independence, but we lost our sovereignty and 10% of our territory. And we don't want the same thing to happen for Ukraine. Are there any lessons? I think conflicts are quite different, depending on where you are. They all have their own DNA. But there's one lesson, I think, generally that we have learned throughout our history, is that in order for you to be able to live in peace and prevent war, you have to prepare for it. There's a reason why we have obligatory military service and 900,000 men and women who've done it. And there's a reason why we have 280,000 men and women in reserves and one of the largest militaries in Europe. And as I always say, the reason is not Sweden. The reason is Russia. And we have been able to maintain peace with Russia and will continue to do so ever since World War II, just by having a deterrence system which is strong enough. And now, of course, us, together with Sweden, joining NATO was the icing on the cake.
On the first question, on matters to do with education and some of the Kenyan students who unfortunately got stranded in Finland, I'm happy that there was eventually, it was a very unfortunate situation, and some officials in Kenya are undergoing accountability mechanisms to make sure that whatever happened to those students, whoever was involved, are held to account. But on a positive note, the universities in Finland were kind enough to accommodate the students and to provide for them to conclude their education on an agreed framework. And I think it shows the depth and form of the relationship between our two countries. And I must, through you, Mr. President, thank the universities in Finland for their understanding and them facilitating the Kenyan students to complete their courses.
Hello, I'm Eva Eronen from YLA Finnish Broadcasting Company. According to rights groups, dozens of people were killed during last year's protest, and also there have been enforced disappearances and many are still missing. Your Excellency, President William Ruto, what is the Kenyan government doing to ensure such violations will not happen again?
Thank you very much for asking that question. I know that it will be a subject of discussion between my guest here with members of the civil society and other members of the Kenyan society. The statistics are arguable this way or the other way, but that does not take away from the issues that have been raised around what happened on the dates you have mentioned. There are three things that I can speak to it. Number one is that there is an accountability mechanism to make sure that that situation is attended to and a proper accountability mechanism is put in place. That's number one. Number two is the fact that I undertook to the country that being a democracy, and robustly so, that Kenyans must not, as has happened in the past, where Kenyans disappeared and their bodies were found in all manner of places, that will not happen under my administration. And all the people who disappeared or who are abducted in what you said, all of them have been brought back to their families and to their homes. And I have given clarity and firm instructions that nothing of that kind of nature will happen again. And that it was my commitment as I became president that extrajudicial disappearances of Kenyans will not be part of what we are doing as a nation. Additionally, we have taken proactive steps. My first assignment when I became president was to extend the independence of our investigative agencies, including the police, give them financial autonomy, give them operational autonomy that is guaranteed in the Constitution, and we have since transferred the budget from the Office of the President for the police to the Police Service Commission, and the Inspector General of the Police is now solely responsible for matters operation, for matters finances, and that my office has now nothing to do with the operations, the financing of police activities, to give them independence. Secondly is to enhance the independence of the judiciary by making sure that we expand the budget for the judiciary, make sure that whatever other interventions that are necessary to make sure that our judiciary is independent and can function at an optimal level, including what Cabinet approved a few weeks ago to make sure that judges have a proper retirement package that also ensures that They have transportation and other benefits that initially were not available to them, as part of my push to make sure that the judiciary is independent and is capacitated to be able to discharge their responsibility as part of checks and balances between the different arms of government.
I think we'll take a final question.
Your Excellencies, President Stubb and the host, President William. My name is Seth Olale from Citizen TV. My question is about what happens after university. What are some of the opportunities and the channels that young people can explore, in particular using technology, artificial intelligence? I know that Kenya has made a tremendous extension in having young people get online jobs, but in as far as Finland is concerned, how can the youth in Kenya, after they finish education without necessarily being employed in both the private and the public sector, how can they self-employ themselves using technology? Thank you.
Thanks. Obviously, a very big question, and I'll try to condense it to saying that I think we now live in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution, which is essentially a technological revolution which has greater speed than any revolutions that we've had previously. So when you combine things such as robotization or artificial intelligence or biotechnology or quantum computing, we are raising the pace of societal change to a point whereby traditional jobs or traditional professions will change. This change means that we're changing the way, the economy and the way in which we work, we're changing politics and the way in which we communicate, and actually we're changing science and the way in which we are as human beings. If we try to give the youth a perspective to say that go into one trade and that'll be your lifelong calling, I think we would be twisting the truth. I mean, I have two youngsters, I guess I can call them nowadays, who are 23 and 21. And what I try to tell them is that their careers are going to be very different from the careers of their parents. So Suzanne, my wife, is a lawyer. She had a legal profession and stuck to it. My profession or calling was in international relations, and I've always been able to move back and forth. But we don't know what the job market is going to be, 5 years from now, let alone 10 years ago. Just go back 10 years and everyone said you need to learn coding. And now we know that artificial intelligence does the coding for us. So my only advice to, young students in both Finland and Kenya is that get a broad base when you do your bachelor's degree or a master's degree, and don't be adamant about sticking to it, because life at the end of the day is going to be a combination of study and work, and the key is always to be curious, always to challenge yourself and find new avenues. If you have that open mind, I think life will take you places, quite often unpredictable and surprising places, but it's a good mentality to have, that you don't get shocked about change, because their life is going to be about change. Absolute final point, there are a lot of youth today that are worried, that are frustrated, that are even distraught about what's going on in the world. Only one message: each and every youngster in this world has agency. Do something about it. Try to improve the world, and it'll turn out all right.
Maybe just to add just a bit on what my good brother, I think he has spoken to that question comprehensively, but I will add to what he has said, maybe in Kiswahili, kazi ni kazi. That's part of the Kenyan psyche, that, there is a diversification of opportunity. It is not a single file, it is not a traditional kind of work that we've always known, that in the space where we are with technology, with a changing climate environment, with agriculture being going towards biotechnology, with all the issues, Internet of Things, and what we are doing around digitization. Just came from this morning's bilateral meeting between the EU and Kenya. And the focus of the meeting was digitizing trade, opening new opportunities for people to work differently. And it is the reason why, as government of Kenya, we've been trying to diversify opportunities for young people, to give them an array of opportunities, whether it is in our housing program, in our markets, in agro-processing, value addition, in our special economic zones and the agricultural sector, or going all the way to the expanded digital footprint around the country, internet footprint that provides digital jobs, digital opportunities going into digital commerce, and what people can do on the internet, be able to sell wares, be able to sell stuff, be able to work on a digital space, or even labor mobility, giving more young people opportunities to work, not just around their villages, not in the towns they are familiar to, not in Kenya possibly, but working elsewhere and sampling opportunities. So I think what His Excellency the President has said is young people must be able to be open-minded, not rigid about the opportunities that are available, and they cut across different sectors, different countries, different professions, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you must stick to your profession. I think what the President is saying, let's be open-minded about the opportunities out there and try and make the most and the best out of the opportunities that come our way. We will continue to work with friends to improve on our education, to improve on our training, so that we can make young people much more versatile, much more agile, to adapt to different situations and different opportunities that come their way. And I think that's the way to the future. I think the traditional way of work is changing. The workspace is changing. The formal 8 to 5 is changing. The having to put on a suit and go to an office is also changing. There are many people who are now working from home. There are many people who are working differently, and all that is part of the new norm as we are looking at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. That will bring us to the end of this. A round of applause in appreciation and gratitude. I'll request that we all be upstanding as we allow Your Excellencies to also exit at their own pleasure. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, for those interventions.